Picture a moment of conflict. Someone challenges you, questions you, pushes you publicly. Your heart rate spikes, your voice tightens. You respond instantly. In your mind, you just defended yourself. But what if, in that exact second, you handed over control? Because the first person to lose emotional composure rarely wins the outcome. Marcus Aurelius ruled during war and betrayal, yet he reminded himself daily that the mind becomes stronger when it refuses to be dragged by events. Seneca warned that anger turns intelligent people into temporary fools. Epictetus taught that the greatest victory is mastery over reaction. They understood something we still overlook. Every conflict has two battles. The external one everyone sees, and the internal one almost no one trains for. If you lose the internal battle first, the external battle becomes harder to win. Stoicism is not about becoming cold, it is about becoming difficult to destabilize. Because the person who controls the emotional rhythm controls the outcome. The hidden battlefield, two conflicts, one winner. Most people believe conflict happens between people. Stoicism teaches that the real conflict happens inside you first, before words are spoken, before decisions are made, before outcomes unfold. There is a silent battle between impulse and judgment. Impulse wants speed, judgment requires time. Impulse wants release, judgment seeks accuracy. Impulse says, react now. Judgment asks, what is the best move? And this internal struggle decides everything that follows. When someone provokes you, you feel urgency. Urgency feels like action. But urgency is often emotional pressure, demanding discharge. The Stoics trained for this exact moment. Epictetus taught that we are not disturbed by events, but by the interpretation we attach to them. That interpretation happens instantly, unless you interrupt it. The moment you fail to interrupt it, the battle is decided. Because once emotion takes the wheel, reason becomes the passenger. And the person who reacts first often surrenders strategic advantage. The Stoic trains to win the internal conflict before engaging in the external one. Because the calm mind enters conflict with options. The reactive mind enters conflict with impulses, and options always outperform impulses. Emotional reaction reveals your pressure points. When you react emotionally, you think you are defending yourself, but you are actually revealing yourself. Every strong reaction sends a signal. This matters to me. This affects me. This is where I am sensitive. And once something is visible, it becomes usable. In competitive environments, work, leadership, negotiation, relationships, people constantly read emotional cues, not consciously, but instinctively. A raised voice signals insecurity. A defensive explanation signals doubt. An angry reply signals loss of control. You believe you are asserting power, but the message received is different. This is where I can be provoked. Epictetus warned that when you are easily disturbed, you become easy to influence, because disturbance reveals attachment. If someone knows what triggers you, they know where your balance is fragile, and fragility changes behavior. You begin defending instead of observing, explaining instead of listening, reacting instead of choosing. This shifts the entire dynamic of the interaction. Calm people gather information, reactive people broadcast information, and in any strategic environment, the person gathering information holds advantage. Stoicism teaches restraint not as suppression, but as protection. Protection of your judgment, protection of your leverage, protection of your position. Because once your emotional pressure points are exposed, others no longer need to defeat you. They only need to provoke you. Emotional rhythm, the invisible advantage. Every interaction has a rhythm. Most people never notice it. When emotions rise, the rhythm accelerates. Voices get louder. Responses get faster. Decisions get rushed. Speed feels powerful, but speed often belongs to the person who feels pressure. The calm person slows the room down, and whoever controls the rhythm controls the outcome. Watch any tense conversation. One person pushes urgency, the other either absorbs it or resists it. If you absorb it, you react faster. If you react faster, you think less. If you think less, you surrender precision. This is why Stoics trained themselves to remain slow in fast moments. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. The rock does not speed up because the waves are violent, it stays steady, and the waves exhaust themselves. When you refuse to accelerate emotionally, something subtle happens. The other person becomes aware of their own speed, and speed begins to feel like instability. Calm shifts pressure back to the source. Silence feels heavier. Deliberate speech feels authoritative. Measured response feels confident. The reactive person tries to end tension quickly. The calm person lets tension reveal truth. In negotiation, the fastest speaker often loses leverage. In conflict, the fastest reaction often loses authority. Stoicism trains you to slow emotional rhythm deliberately, not to appear calm, but to think clearly. Because the person who slows the moment expands their options, and options win conflicts. The biology of losing the frame. Before philosophy, there is chemistry. When you feel attacked, challenged, or disrespected, your nervous system reacts before your logic has time to respond. Your heart rate rises. Your breathing shortens. Your muscles tense. Your brain shifts into survival mode. This is not weakness. This is biology. The problem begins when biology becomes behavior. Under emotional stress, your brain prioritizes speed over accuracy. It narrows your focus. It reduces your ability to evaluate long-term consequences. It pushes you toward immediate relief. Relief feels like action, but relief is often reaction. In that moment, you are no longer calculating outcomes. You are discharging tension, and while you are reacting, the calm person is still thinking. This is where the frame shifts. The person who remains cognitively clear keeps access to options. The person who reacts emotionally reduces their own choices. Reaction simplifies reality. Calm expands it. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to notice emotional surges as they began, not after they exploded. He understood that the first wave is physiological, but the second wave is voluntary. The first wave is feeling. The second wave is decision. Stoicism lives between those two waves, because the person who learns to stay mentally wide under pressure becomes difficult to destabilize, and the person who cannot be destabilized becomes difficult to defeat. The Stoic weapon, the pause. Here is the difference between instinct and mastery. Instinct reacts. Mastery waits, not forever, just long enough. When emotion surges, it creates urgency. Urgency whispers, act now. But urgency is rarely strategic. Seneca warned that anger demands immediate action. That demand is precisely what makes it dangerous. The pause interrupts the demand. It does three powerful things at once. It stabilizes your physiology. It restores cognitive clarity. It prevents regret. Most defeats do not happen because someone else was stronger. They happen because someone reacted too quickly. In conflict, the first reaction is often defensive. Defense reveals insecurity. Insecurity shifts power. The Stoic pauses, not to appear composed, but to regain authorship. That pause may last 3 seconds, but inside those 3 seconds, something critical happens. Impulse fades slightly, judgment strengthens slightly, and slightly is enough. Epictetus taught that we cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. The pause is where that control becomes real. When you pause, you observe instead of escalate. You assess instead of attack. You choose instead of discharge. And in competitive environments, the person who chooses deliberately becomes unpredictable in the most powerful way. They are no longer programmable. They cannot be rushed. They cannot be baited. They cannot be steered by provocation. They respond when ready, and readiness is power. Emotional judo, using their energy without losing yours. Most people think control means resistance, but Stoicism often works through redirection. Like judo, when someone brings emotional intensity, anger, aggression, pressure, your instinct is to match it, to defend, to counter, to escalate. That is exactly what they expect, and expectation creates predictability. Emotional judo breaks that pattern. Instead of meeting force with force, The Stoic meets force with stability. When someone raises their voice, you lower yours. When someone speeds up, you slow down. When someone attacks, you ask questions. This creates psychological friction. The emotional opponent expects resistance. Instead, they meet calm. Their momentum has nowhere to go. Anger feeds on reaction. Frustration feeds on escalation. Conflict feeds on symmetry. Remove symmetry, and the energy collapses. Marcus Aurelius wrote about responding to aggression without becoming aggressive, not to appear virtuous, but to remain effective. Calm does something unexpected. It destabilizes the emotional aggressor, because emotional escalation requires participation. When you refuse to participate, the emotional dynamic changes. Questions replace accusations. Silence replaces escalation. Observation replaces reaction. The goal is not to win emotionally. The goal is to win strategically. Emotional judo transforms conflict into information. And the person gathering information always holds advantage. Calm as a status signal. There is a psychological truth that operates quietly in every room. People read emotional stability as capability, not consciously, instinctively. When pressure rises, everyone looks for signals. Who is steady? Who is reactive? Who is grounded? Who is losing composure? Because stability suggests control, and control suggests competence. This is not moral judgment. It is social perception. A calm voice during conflict signals confidence. Measured speech signals certainty. Deliberate reactions signal authority. Volatility signals uncertainty. Urgency signals insecurity. Overreaction signals loss of control. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire in chaos. His greatest challenge was not enemies, it was maintaining internal stability while others depended on his judgment. Because instability at the top spreads downward. In competitive environments, calm becomes a status signal. The steady person becomes the reference point. The reactive person becomes the variable. And variables are rarely trusted with leadership. Stoicism teaches emotional control not to impress others, but because composure communicates reliability. Reliability builds trust. Trust builds influence. Influence shapes outcomes. When you become emotionally steady, your presence changes. People speak differently around you. Conflicts unfold differently around you. Opportunities appear differently around you, because calm is interpreted as capability, and capability attracts responsibility. Emotional independence, the moment you stop being controllable. The easiest person to influence is the most reactive one, because reaction creates leverage. If someone can trigger your anger, they can change your behavior. If someone can provoke your insecurity, they can change your decisions. If someone can rush your fear, they can change your timing. This is not manipulation in a dramatic sense. It is everyday influence. The Stoics understood this deeply. Whoever governs your emotions governs you. Epictetus was born a slave, yet he taught that true freedom begins when your inner state is no longer controlled by external events. Freedom is not external. It is emotional independence. When your mood depends on praise, you become dependent on approval. When your confidence collapses under criticism, you become dependent on validation. When your decisions change under pressure, you become dependent on circumstance. Dependency makes you predictable. Predictability makes you steerable. But something powerful happens when your internal state becomes stable. Provocation loses power. Pressure loses urgency. Approval loses control. You stop reacting to emotional bait. And once you stop reacting, others must interact with you differently, because they can no longer steer you through emotion. Emotional independence is not isolation, it is autonomy. It is the quiet realization that your inner world belongs to you. And once your inner world becomes self-governed, your outer world becomes harder to control. The moment of choice, reaction versus strategy. Every emotional surge creates a crossroads. One path is reaction, the other is strategy. Reaction seeks relief. Strategy seeks outcome. Reaction wants to discharge tension immediately. Strategy tolerates tension long enough to choose wisely. Most people believe strategy is complex. In reality, strategy often begins with a simple question: what outcome do I actually want? Anger wants victory in the moment. Strategy wants advantage over time. Pride wants to be right. Strategy wants to be effective. Fear wants safety now. Strategy wants progress later. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to step outside the immediate moment and view events from a higher perspective. Distance transforms urgency into clarity. When you ask what outcome you want, something shifts. You stop reacting to the present emotion. You start acting for the future result. This changes everything. Arguments become negotiations. Insults become information. Pressure becomes opportunity. The emotional person fights the moment. The strategic person shapes the outcome. Stoicism trains you to pause long enough to choose the second path. Because the person who consistently chooses strategy over reaction becomes difficult to defeat. Not because they never feel emotion, but because emotion never decides the final move. The unbeatable mind, winning the internal war. At the highest level, this is no longer about conflict with others. It is about conflict with impulse, because every external challenge eventually becomes internal. Pressure becomes doubt. Criticism becomes insecurity. Conflict becomes anger. Uncertainty becomes fear. If you lose the internal war, the external battle becomes irrelevant. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself daily not to inspire others, but to discipline his own thinking. He understood that ruling an empire meant nothing if he could not rule his own reactions. Stoicism is not a philosophy of detachment, it is a philosophy of inner command. When you master your reactions, several things change quietly. You stop being rushed by urgency. You stop being shaken by criticism. You stop being baited by provocation. You stop being steered by emotion. You begin to move deliberately. And deliberate people become difficult to defeat, not because they overpower others, but because they cannot be destabilized. The person who cannot be destabilized keeps clarity. The person who keeps clarity keeps options. The person who keeps options keeps advantage. The greatest victory is invisible. It happens in the moment you feel the surge and choose not to obey it. That is the Stoic victory. Become difficult to defeat. Before you leave, remember this. Most battles are not lost in public. They are lost in private moments of reaction. The message you sent too fast, the decision you made too quickly, the pride you defended unnecessarily, the anger you released without thinking. No audience, no applause, no warning. Just a reaction, quietly shaping the outcome. Stoicism is not about never feeling emotion. It is about never surrendering command. You will still feel anger. You will still feel pressure. You will still feel fear. But you will choose what happens next. And that choice changes everything, because the person who governs their reactions becomes difficult to predict, difficult to provoke, difficult to destabilize. And what cannot be destabilized becomes difficult to defeat. Your greatest advantage will never be louder words, faster reactions, or stronger emotions. It will be the calm mind that chooses deliberately, while others react automatically. Master the internal battle, and the external battles become winnable.